Hi, Gemini. Welcome to your December 2018 Astro Update. It's Verena, and December is the last month of the year, as we all know. But instead of wrapping things up, this may feel like something of a new year because we've been experiencing so many retrogrades in 2018 that I wonder how many people really felt like they were able to push through some of their projects that they wanted to do. Even if they knew nothing about astrology and about the timing and the retrogrades, I still wonder if they experienced a lot of frustrations, a lot of delays. Now, obviously, people have published books and done all kinds of initiated new things in 2018, but they still may have felt that it lagged, that it didn't take off the way that they had hoped. I don't know. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I'm sure that our individual charts and destinies will make this different for everybody. But in general, December is green light time because after the 6th, when Mercury goes direct in Scorpio, and especially after Christmas Day, when Mercury comes out of its shadow in Sagittarius, I think that the energy is going to start to speed up. I think of the Eight of Wands in the Tarot, where it's like all of a sudden we've been held back by all these delays, and then things come fast and furious into our lives. And then in January, I was looking ahead, and I think it was the 6th of January, Uranus is going direct, and then everything is direct. So it always feels good, even if you just look at it symbolically, when all the planets are direct, because it feels like a cosmic yes for whatever it is that you're trying to put out into this world. So December, when the sun is in Sagittarius, is very special for Gemini because Sag is your opposite sign. So you're going to have a lot of 7th house issues come up. Now, obviously, this is a general reading, so depending on your sun or rising sign degree of Gemini, this may not fall in the house I'm telling you, but I do these readings just to provide some kind of a general idea of where the energy is traveling through in your chart. And in the 7th house, we're talking about relationship issues, but I wouldn't be surprised if some Geminis are going through divorces. And so this is going to be featured as well. I really do believe that new moons in the 7th house can be a time when a divorce has been finalized, or maybe the person's even launching a divorce. And before you decide to thumb me down for that, understand that divorce can be something that is very freeing for some people. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's only a bad thing if you identify it that way. If you are in an unhappy relationship, then leaving that relationship can be wonderful, and you can feel very relieved about it. So I'm not speaking about divorce in negative terms, just to make it clear. But anyway, let's talk about some of the things that are happening as the month opens. The month opens with the sun in Sagittarius, so it is that 7th house, and the sun in a house, it has a healing, positive influence. So if there are any kind of negative things going on within a committed partnership, the sun isn't going to hurt that. It's going to help that. And at the same time, Mercury is retrograde, as I mentioned earlier. Now, Mercury began retrograding in the 7th house, and now on the 1st, it goes back into the 6th house. I wrote it down incorrectly. It goes back into the 6th house of health and the work environment. Now, based on some of this, I'm curious if any Gemini people had any kind of affair with somebody in the office place, because the 6th house for you is Scorpio, and this is where Venus retrograded back in early October, and on the 2nd, Venus goes back into that 6th house. So it retrograded from the 6th to the 5th, and now it's back into the 6th house. And so something, and Venus is direct now, so something may have gotten resolved, but maybe if you were married, that affected your marriage. So this isn't me being cavalier about these kind of issues. I'm not going to, moralize, sermonize about them. I'm just here to talk about transits. So if anything like that occurred, you may have sorted it out by now. It may be that somebody came back into the workplace that you had some fling with in the past and now, or an attraction to. And they came somehow, you came back together with this person. And if you happen to be married or partnered with somebody, that may have put a strain on that relationship. But with the sun in the 7th house, it sounds like things are getting back into the groove. And Venus in the 6th house can be about money, about getting what you deserve financially from the work that you're doing. Mercury goes direct on the 6th in that 6th house, and so Mercury rules this house. Mercury in the 6th house can be a very health-minded person, maybe maybe you've been really researching about the type of diet or lifestyle plan to improve your health for some reason, because you did have a new moon in this sector earlier in November. And so you may have been implementing things for your health. And this is just par for the course. Actually, in November 22nd, you have, I'm saying have because hasn't happened yet. So if you're listening in November, that's kind of a bonus part of the reading. You're having this full moon in your sign on November 22nd at 0 degrees of Gemini. So this can be, for some people, an awareness about something that affects your physical body. And so the 1st house can be the body. The 6th house is about health practices, as well as, about your health and the practices that you engage in, such as your diet and maybe exercise to make that happen, and also your workplace. But the 1st house and your habits, your daily habits. And the 1st house is more of just the self. But that can also be a time when you really you can see what needs to change. And maybe you implement that in December, which is pretty courageous of you, because most people are celebrating the holidays, and it's going to be really tempting to have a diet during these holiday celebrations. But, it might just be small steps, that you're not doing everything overnight. So the new moon is on the 7th, and this is at 15 degrees of Sag. And so this can breathe new life into a committed partnership. It can take it in a new direction, and that's why I mentioned divorce or maybe a legal separation. Again, these things can improve people's lives. This is not, you can't say that being with somebody is always good. Sometimes getting away from them can be one of the greatest joys that you will ever experience. So, depending on what's going on, you may get new clients. This is the house of clients. And that can be very favorable especially if you own your own business. On the 12th, Mercury goes back into Sagittarius in that 7th house. And again, this could be some kind of contract that was, I don't know, some problems with the contract that have been ironed out, maybe connected to employment, work, your job, what have you. And that gets sorted out, especially by Christmas Day when Mercury goes out of its shadow. Communication with people one-on-one, and that can smooth things over as well. Or at least resolve them, I should say. And then on the solstice, Sun going into Capricorn. And this is your 8th house. So the Sun has gone from the house of committed partnership to the house of intimacy. So definitely this committed partnership focus, where the 7th and 8th houses, to me, work in tandem when it comes to especially, I would say, relationships like romantic relationships, because those are the ones that we get into it with people at a very deep level. Even with friendships, sometimes we kind of might keep it more light and not as heavy, right? So we're talking about it from that perspective. And you're going to see that theme. You did have Mars in this sector before. And by the way, when Mars was there during Mars retrograde, there may have been something related to a probate issue that you were fighting, and this may initiate more activity in this house of other people's money, shared resources. But not with Mars, so it's not this kind of conflict. It may be just more of the progression of whatever it is that was initiated. And then on the next day, on the 22nd, there is a full moon at 0 degrees of Cancer, and this is in your 2nd house of earned income. So it is at 0 degrees, so that's kind of strange because that's like the beginning of that every degree, the early degree is like the 0 degree mark. You don't know what will manifest. And there's almost like a newness to whatever this is, but we're talking about a full moon, which a lot of times is associated with endings. So maybe there is something to do with one income stream that you have had that is no longer. And again, with all of that stuff that you were dealing with Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde in the 6th house in this time period, starting a few months ago with the Venus retrograde and then with the Mercury retrograde, both of them going into that 6th house at some point, or starting off there, you may have felt like you were really thinking long and hard about your whatever work you're doing. And for some of you, you may have given a notice, and this is right before Christmas, and this may be the last paycheck. But understand that if you have done something like this, that there's something better for you out there. There's no question in my mind that there's something better out there for you. You have to believe that. And I know it's easier said than done, but I just don't feel that we came here to have all the predictable experiences. Sometimes we have to be able to live not knowing at all, what's going to happen next. Because then when you're out on that limb, that's when you really understand that life is very dynamic and it can be exciting to not have that kind of like guarantee in life, but nobody really does. It's always an illusion to think that you have a guarantee. But in general, if we just forget about the degrees and just look at what the full moon represents in this house, it could be like some work that you've done coming to some sort of an apex, coming to a head, and that could be something that you benefit from financially. So you end the year with this practical new full moon, but I wanted to say something about the fact of your second house and the fact that you have the North Node now in that house, but on the other end of things at a late degree, because the North Node transits backwards. So the North Node in the next 18 months in Cancer will teach Gemini people about what, how they came here to gather resources for themselves. And the South Node, which is the opposite sign, opposite house, the 8th house of shared resources, is not what you should rely on during this time period. And circumstances may prevent you from being able to do that even if you wanted to. Another possibility, too, is that with the South Node in the 8th house, that anything that you have been used to, if you're somebody who typically runs up credit cards, those kind of things may, if you even try it, you may find that it just stops working because you have a lot of heavy hitters there. You have Saturn there transiting. You have Pluto transiting. So you're learning the lesson of the responsibility of shared resources, but you're also understanding how, where does wealth come from? So just the general topic of wealth, you may have, for whatever reason, emphasized getting your money through other people when you really have needed to concentrate on doing for self. And you may find in the next 18 months that you receive a lot of, out of the blue, supposedly, opportunities to earn money. Maybe you will have multiple income streams by the time this is all over with. And that's the more the better, because then even if one job results in a layoff, you're not just completely not making any money, that you don't have any money coming in. You'll always have money coming in. Okay. Well, Gemini. One thing I want to say about this in terms of relationships, this is very important about the 8th house. With Pluto there, with Saturn there, you're going to have to face some of the things that maybe you have kind of dodged in the past. And with Pluto, this is a once-in-a-lifetime transit. Not everyone is going to have Pluto transit their 8th house. So for those of you Geminis who are, I would say, lucky enough to have this in your lifetime, be glad for it, because you never know what a powerful teacher Pluto can be until you have finished off this transit. You might even want to buy a t-shirt. Maybe, I just thought of a great idea. I should design t-shirts with transits, like I survived the Pluto transit or something. What do you think? But anyway, that's kind of like a something that you it's like, I always liken it to having a mirror shoved in your face where you are forced to look at yourself and look at your shadow when it's talking about the 8th house. The shadow comes up big for Gemini. And this is, I was going to say almost hilarious, because you are a sign, you're like sleight of hand. You're like the will-o'-the-wisp, the one that, the mercurial one, the one, the trickster. Actually, the magician is associated with Mercury and Gemini. And so you may always, it's like Houdini, always finding this way to slip out of some restraint that you're in, because you want your freedom and you want the ability to have these new experiences in life. And especially when it comes to committed partnership, it may feel too confining. So how do you reconcile the need for a relationship that is a genuine one and that is a deep one without feeling suffocated? These kind of things you have to be able to probe deeply into your own psyche as well as your partner's psyche in order to figure out if you are compatible and if you really have the stuff to make it work. But also in any relationship that you're in, it's not just about, oh, this relationship didn't work out, I'm going to try a new one. You'll see the pattern recur over and over and over again until you decide that you're not going to run away. And so just keeping that in mind, because the 8th house is loaded right now. And so with the full moon in the 2nd house, this may be of a more practical nature, although the 2nd house can be your self-esteem. So you may become aware of how that has impacted you at a deep level, because the sun will be in that 8th house at the time of this full moon, and kind of like enlightening you about that and bringing to light any issues that come up around self-esteem. And maybe even power issues with the 8th house, that can be that also trauma, and that is another area where people can a lot of times check out and they don't really want to deal with it because it feels too hard. It feels like it's overwhelming. And that's what shadow work is all about. But in terms of intimacy and relationships, and so it's a very interesting time. And with Jupiter in the 7th house, you are cosmically supported in any kind of one-on-one way. So the 8th house can even be, maybe some Geminis are, really going into psychotherapy. And I was going to even say like Jungian therapy, where you really look at the archetypes and how they play out in your life and things like that. Who knows? But I really feel like Gemini people are being challenged to make themselves over. But it's like, pardon the dust. It's a process, and it's not something that just happens overnight. So yeah. Okay, Gemini, I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like a personal reading, a natal chart interpretation, I'm offering 20% off of them until the end of December of 2018. So this is the time. I did it last year, and I'm doing it again. So take care and have an awesome December. Bye.